The video arrived at 11:47 p.m. on my 41st birthday, just 13 minutes before the day officially ended. I was sitting in my home office, nursing a lukewarm beer and pretending to review engineering blueprints while my wife Jenny slept upstairs. The anonymous message notification lit up my phone screen like a neon sign advertising my own destruction. I should have deleted it. Should have gone to bed. Should have maintained the comfortable illusion that my marriage was just going through a rough patch, that my 15-year-old daughter Emily's coldness toward me was just typical teenage behavior, that the whispered phone calls and secretive text messages were nothing more than my paranoid imagination running wild. Instead, I clicked play. The video quality was surprisingly clear, shot from what looked like a hotel room window. The timestamp showed it was recorded 3 days ago while I was working late on the Morrison Bridge project. There was my wife, Jenny Ward, 39 years old, paralegal at Hendrickson Associates, mother of my only child, lying undressed in bed with Rick Marston, her high school boyfriend, the slick car dealer who owned 3 lots across town and had a reputation for sleeping with half the married women in our coastal Maryland community. The man she always dismissed as ancient history whenever his name came up at neighborhood barbecues or town festivals. But the betrayal in bed wasn't even the worst part. I'd suspected the affair for months. The worst part came at the 37-second mark, when the hotel room door opened and Emily walked in, still wearing her school uniform from Riverside Prep. "Mom, can we go get dinner now?" she asked, completely comfortable with the scene before her. Rick sat up, pulling on his shirt with the casual confidence of a man who belonged there. "Hey, kiddo, how was school?" Emily smiled, actually smiled, and walked over to hug him. Not her mother, him. "It was okay. Mrs. Patterson gave us another stupid essay assignment about family traditions." She paused, looking up at Rick with genuine affection. "I wish you were my dad instead. You actually listened to me." Rick kissed the top of her head. "Maybe someday, sweetheart. Maybe someday." Jenny laughed. That musical laugh I used to love, the one I hadn't heard directed at me in over 2 years. "Don't give her false hope, Rick. Tom would never agree to a divorce. He's too stubborn and too cheap to let me go. Then we'll just have to convince him," Rick said, his voice carrying an edge I'd never heard before. "One way or another." The video ended there, leaving me staring at a black screen that reflected my own stunned face. 41 years old, thinning brown hair, crow's feet around green eyes that had seen too much, wearing a ratty Georgetown University t-shirt from my college days when I still believed in happy endings and honest people. I didn't throw the phone, didn't scream, didn't march upstairs to confront them. Instead, I sat there in my leather office chair, the one Jenny always complained was too expensive, and felt something cold and calculating settle into my chest where my heart used to be. "Happy birthday to me," I whispered to the empty room. Nothing says middle age like cold lasagna and colder betrayal. The house was silent except for the hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of Jenny's breathing through the baby monitor we'd never bothered to remove from Emily's old room. 15 years of marriage. 16 years of believing I was building something permanent, something worth the 60-hour work weeks and the missed dinners and the gradual erosion of everything I thought I knew about love. I opened my laptop and began making notes. Not emotional rambling or angry threats, but a careful, methodical list. Bank accounts, assets, property deeds, insurance policies, Emily's college fund. The cabin in West Virginia that Jenny had never liked but couldn't touch because it was in my name alone, inherited from my grandfather. By 2:30 a.m., I had a plan. Not a revenge fantasy, but a cold, legal, perfectly executed strategy that would teach my wife and daughter exactly what it meant to underestimate Tom Ward. I wasn't the exciting one. Wasn't the smooth talker or the guy who made grand romantic gestures. I was the reliable one, the one who fixed things when they broke, who paid the bills on time, and remembered to change the oil in Jenny's car, and showed up to every school event even when Emily pretended not to see me in the audience. But reliable didn't mean stupid, and it certainly didn't mean weak. The anonymous sender had given me a gift, all right. Not the gift they probably intended, but a gift nonetheless. They'd show me the truth about my family, stripped away the polite lies and comfortable pretenses that had been slowly suffocating me for years. Now it was time to return the favor. I didn't sleep. Instead, I spent the remaining hours before dawn researching divorce attorneys, reviewing our prenuptial agreement, Thank God for my grandfather's old-fashioned insistence on protecting family assets and transferring funds to accounts Jenny didn't know existed. At 6:15 a.m., while Jenny and Emily were still asleep, I drove to First National Bank and met with Patricia Clemens, the branch manager who'd handled my family's accounts for over a decade. "Tom, you're here early," she said, ushering me into her office. "Everything okay?" "Just need to make some adjustments to our account structure," I said, sliding the paperwork across her desk. "I'm consolidating some investments." What I was actually doing was moving 60% of our joint assets into a separate account, perfectly legal under Maryland law as long as it was done before divorce proceedings began. The house was mine, inherited property with clear documentation. Jenny's car payments came from an account I controlled. Even Emily's cell phone was on my plan. "This will take about an hour to process," Patricia said, reviewing the forms. "Should I call Jenny to confirm?" "No need, she's sleeping in today. Birthday celebration ran late last night." Patricia smiled. "How was the party?" "Enlightening," I said. "Very enlightening." By 8 o'clock a.m., I was sitting in the office of Margaret Harper, the best divorce attorney in 3 counties. She was a sharp-faced woman in her 50s who'd built her reputation on protecting men from vindictive ex-wives. "Mr. Ward, what brings you here this morning?" I showed her the video. Margaret watched it twice, her expression growing more predatory with each viewing. "This is excellent documentation. When was this recorded?" 3 days ago. I received it anonymously last night. "Do you know who sent it?" "No, but I intend to find out." I leaned forward. "Here's what I want. I want them out of my house by tonight. I want the divorce filed before lunch. And I want my daughter to understand that choices have consequences. Emily is 15. In Maryland, she can express a custody preference, but she won't want to live with me anyway," I said, surprised by how calm I sounded. "She made her choice clear in that video. I'm just making sure she gets exactly what she asked for." Margaret smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. "I like you already, Mr. Ward. Let's destroy your wife's life, shall we?" While Margaret prepared the paperwork, I drove to my office at Coastal Engineering Solutions. My boss, Frank Nichols, was already there, reviewing the Morrison Bridge plans with his usual obsessive attention to detail. "Tom, you look like heck. Late night?" "Birthday celebration," I said. "Frank, I need to take a personal day tomorrow, maybe the rest of the week." "Everything okay at home?" "Just some family business that needs handling." I sat down at my drafting table, trying to focus on load calculations and stress analysis, but my mind kept drifting to the video. To Emily's smile when she hugged Rick, to Jenny's casual dismissal of our marriage as an obstacle to be overcome. My phone buzzed with a text from Pete Morrison, my best friend since college and the reason I'd gotten the bridge contract in the first place. "How was the birthday dinner? Jenny make your favorite?" I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back. "Dinner was perfect. Got exactly what I deserved." "That bad, huh? Want to grab a beer after work? Rain check. Have some business to take care of." At 11:30 a.m., Margaret called. "It's done. Divorce papers are filed, and I've arranged for service at 2 p.m. The locks will be changed at 3 p.m. Your wife and daughter will have exactly 1 hour to collect personal belongings before the sheriff escorts them off the property." "What about her car?" "Legally yours, until the divorce is finalized. I've already contacted the bank to freeze her credit cards." "And Emily's phone? Service suspended as of noon." I closed my eyes, feeling a mixture of satisfaction and something that might have been regret if I was still capable of that emotion. "Thank you, Margaret." "Don't thank me yet, Tom. Thank me when we're done with them." At 1:45 p.m., I drove home to watch the show. Jenny's Honda was in the driveway, along with Rick's flashy red Mustang. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. Through the living room window, I could see Emily on the couch, doing homework, while Jenny and Rick sat close together on the love seat, sharing what looked like an intimate conversation. The sheriff's deputy arrived precisely at 2 p.m. I watched from my truck as he knocked on the door, handed Jenny the papers, and explained her legal situation in the patient, professional tone of someone who'd done this 1,000 times before. Jenny's scream was audible, even through my closed windows. The next 3 days were a masterclass in controlled demolition. Jenny and Emily moved into a cramped apartment on the wrong side of town, the only place Jenny could afford on her paralegal salary after I froze the joint accounts. Rick had offered to help, but his own financial situation was more precarious than anyone realized. I knew this because I'd done my homework. Rick Marston owned 3 car lots, but Two of them were mortgaged to the hilt, and the third was hemorrhaging money thanks to a downturn in the local economy. His divorce from his first wife had cost him half his assets, and his reputation for sleeping with married women was starting to affect his business. Turns out a lot of his customers were married men who didn't appreciate their wives shopping for cars from the local Lothario. On Thursday morning, I paid a visit to Rick's main dealership on Route 50. The lot was mostly empty except for a few teenagers looking at used cars they couldn't afford, and a middle-aged woman arguing with a salesman about trade-in values. Rick was in his office, visible through the glass walls that were supposed to make him look important and accessible. He saw me coming and his face went pale under his artificial tan. "Tom," he said as I walked in without knocking, "I wasn't expecting you." "I bet you weren't." I sat down in the chair across from his desk, noting the family photos that still included his ex-wife and the motivational posters that couldn't quite hide the desperation in his eyes. Nice office, very professional. I especially liked the view of the repo lot next door. "Look, if you're here to cause trouble..." "Trouble?" I laughed, and the sound surprised both of us. "Rick, I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm here to thank you." He blinked. "Thank me?" "For showing me who my family really was." For 15 years, I thought I was married to a woman who loved me and raising a daughter who respected me. Turns out I was just the meal ticket for two people who couldn't wait to trade me in for a newer model. Rick's hands were shaking slightly as he reached for his coffee cup. "Tom, it's not like that. Emily's just confused, and Jenny..." "Jenny what?" "Jenny loves me, but just can't help sleeping with her high school boyfriend in cheap hotel rooms. Jenny respects our marriage, but thinks I'm too stubborn and cheap to give her a divorce." I leaned forward. "I saw the video, Rick. All of it." The coffee cup slipped from his fingers, spilling brown liquid across his desk and onto his lap. "What video?" "The one someone sent me on my birthday. Very thoughtful gift, actually. Really opened my eyes to a lot of things." I stood up, enjoying the way he flinched. "Here's what's going to happen, Rick. You're going to stay away from my wife and daughter. Not because I'm threatening you, I'm not the threatening type, but because continuing to see them is going to cost you more than you can afford. You can't stop me from what? From seeing Jenny? She's broke, Rick. No money, no assets, living in a one-bedroom apartment with a teenage daughter who's about to learn that life without daddy's credit cards is a lot less fun than she thought. From seeing Emily, she's a minor, and her mother is about to be very busy working 2 jobs just to pay rent." I walked toward the door, then turned back. "Oh, and Rick, you might want to check your online reviews. Seems like word is getting around about your special customer service policies." That wasn't a bluff. I'd spent Tuesday evening creating fake accounts and posting detailed reviews about Rick's affairs with married customers. Nothing libelous, just enough truth mixed with innuendo to make potential customers think twice about bringing their wives to his lot. From the dealership, I drove to Hendricks & Associates, the law firm where Jenny worked. I didn't go inside, that would have been too obvious. Instead, I called the senior partner, Gerald Hendricks, from my truck in the parking lot. "Mr. Hendricks, this is Tom Ward. My wife Jenny works for you as a paralegal." "Yes, of course. How can I help you, Tom?" "I wanted to give you a heads up about some personal issues that might affect her work performance. We're going through a divorce, and there are some professional conduct concerns that might come to light." "What kind of concerns?" "The kind that involves sleeping with clients and using firm resources for personal business. I'm not making accusations, you understand. Just thought you should be aware that there might be some scrutiny of her activities over the past few months." There was a long pause. "I appreciate you calling, Tom. We'll look into this matter." "I'm sure you will. Have a good day, Mr. Hendricks." Jenny was fired by Friday afternoon. That evening, I met Pete at Murphy's Tavern, our usual spot for drinks and complaints about work, wives, and the general unfairness of middle-aged life. Pete was already 3 beers in when I arrived, which meant he was ready to dispense wisdom whether I wanted it or not. "Jesus, Tom, you look like you've been hit by a truck. Jenny's really putting you through the ringer, huh?" "Something like that." I ordered a bourbon. Neat. "Pete, can I ask you something?" "Go ahead." "How long have you known about Jenny and Rick?" Pete's beer stopped halfway to his mouth. "What? Come on, Pete. This is a small town. Everyone knows everything about everyone else. How long have you known my wife was cheating on me?" He set down his beer and looked genuinely uncomfortable. "Tom, I don't know what you think you know, but I know because I have video evidence. I know because my daughter told her lover she wished he was her father. I know because my best friend is sitting there trying to figure out how to lie to my face about something half the town has been gossiping about for months. Pete was quiet for a long moment, then about 6 months, maybe longer. I heard rumors, but I didn't want to believe them. And I sure as heck didn't want to be the one to tell you. Why not? Because you seemed happy, oblivious but happy, and because, he struggled with the words, because I was afraid you'd do something stupid. I laughed, that new laugh that didn't sound like the old Tom Ward at all. Stupid like what? Like trusting my wife? Like believing my daughter loved me? Like thinking my friends would have my back? That's not fair, Tom. Fair? I finished my bourbon and signaled for another. Pete, let me tell you about fair. Fair is working 60 hours a week to pay for a house where your wife sleeps with her ex-boyfriend. Fair is missing dinner with clients so you can attend your daughter's school events where she pretends not to know you. Fair is having your best friend watch your marriage implode and say nothing because it's more comfortable than telling the truth. Pete looked like I'd slapped him. Tom, I'm sorry. I should have said something. I just didn't know how. Well, now you don't have to worry about it. Jenny's out, Emily's out, and I'm done pretending that any of this was ever real. I threw a 20 on the table and stood up. Thanks for the honesty, Pete, even if it came a little late. Tom, wait, where are you going? To finish what they started. The weekend brought new developments. Jenny had been calling my phone nonstop, leaving increasingly desperate voicemails that ranged from tearful apologies to furious threats to legal demands. I listened to each one with the detached interest of a scientist studying an interesting specimen. Tom, please call me back. We need to talk about this like adults. Emily is crying herself to sleep every night. She misses her home. She misses her room. She misses you. This is insane. You can't just throw away 15 years of marriage because of one mistake. One mistake. As if the months of lies, the secret meetings, the casual dismissal of our marriage as an inconvenience, and Emily's wish that another man was her father all added up to a single moment of poor judgment. Sunday morning, I was drinking coffee on my deck when I saw Jenny's Honda pull into the driveway. She got out alone. Emily was probably still asleep in their cramped apartment and walked up to the front door like she still lived there. I watched through the window as she tried her key, discovered the locks had been changed, and then began pounding on the door. Tom, open this door right now. I know you're in there. I opened the door but left the security chain attached so I could see her face through the 3-inch gap. She looked terrible. Her usually perfect hair was unwashed and pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wasn't wearing makeup, and the dark circles under her eyes made her look older than her 39 years. What do you want, Jenny? I want to talk. I want to come inside my house and sit down with my husband and work this out. Your house? Your husband? I shook my head. This is my house, inherited from my grandfather, and I'm not your husband anymore. Margaret filed the papers on Tuesday. Tom, please, I know you're hurt, but we can fix this. I'll end things with Rick. We can go to counseling. Emily needs stability. Emily needs to learn that actions have consequences. And you need to learn that some things can't be fixed with apologies and promises. I started to close the door, but she pressed her hand against it. Wait, what about Emily's college fund? What about her future? What about it? She needs that money for school. You can't punish her for my mistakes. I almost laughed. Jenny, Emily stood in a hotel room and told another man she wished he was her father. She made her choice. Now she gets to live with it. She's 15 years old enough to know right from wrong, old enough to understand loyalty and betrayal, old enough to face the consequences of choosing Rick over me. Jenny's face crumpled. Tom, you're not this cruel. This isn't who you are. You're right, I said. The old Tom would have forgiven you, would have gone to counseling and pretended everything was fine and spent the next 20 years wondering when you'd cheat again. But the old Tom was an idiot who believed in happy endings and second chances. I'm someone new now, someone you created to. I closed the door and turned the deadbolt, leaving her standing on the porch. She pounded on the door for another 10 minutes before giving up and driving away. That afternoon, I drove to the annual Riverside County Fair, held every Labor Day weekend in the park behind the high school. The whole town would be there, families, teenagers, local politicians, business owners, everyone who mattered in our small coastal community. I found Rick at the classic car show, standing next to his restored 1970 Mustang and trying to charm a group of potential customers. He was wearing his best salesman smile, but I could see the strain around his eyes. The online reviews were working. His business was suffering. "Nice car, Rick," I said, walking up to the group. "Is this the one you use for your hotel visits?" The potential customers looked confused. Rick's smile faltered. "Tom, what are you doing here?" "Just enjoying the fair. Beautiful day for it." I ran my hand along the Mustang's hood. "You know, Rick, I've been thinking about our conversation the other day. About choices and consequences." "Tom, don't do anything stupid." "Stupid?" I pulled out my phone and opened the video that had started everything. "You mean like this?" I held the phone so the group of customers could see the screen. Their expressions changed from confusion to shock to disgust as they recognized Rick and realized what they were watching. "Jesus Christ," one of them muttered. "That's his car in the background." "Yeah," I said conversationally. "Same car he's trying to sell you now. Small world, isn't it?" The group walked away quickly, shooting disgusted looks back at Rick. He grabbed my arm, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. "You son of a witch! You're trying to ruin me." "I don't have to try, Rick. You're doing a fine job of that yourself." I pulled my arm free. "I'm just making sure everyone knows exactly who they're dealing with. This is harassment. I could call the police." "Go ahead. I'm sure they'd love to see the video too. Especially the part where my underage daughter talks about wanting you to be her father. That might raise some interesting questions about your relationship with minors." Rick went pale. "It's not like that. I never touched Emily. I would never." "I know, but appearances matter, don't they? Especially in a town like this where reputation is everything." I walked away, leaving him standing next to his car with shaking hands and the growing realization that his comfortable life was falling apart. The rest of the fair was a series of similar encounters. Everywhere I went, people approached me with a mixture of curiosity and sympathy. Word was spreading about the divorce, about the video, about Jenny's firing, and Rick's business troubles. "Tom, I'm so sorry about what happened," said Martha Lentz, the neighborhood gossip queen. "I always thought Jenny was too good to be true." "Thank you, Martha. It's been educational. If there's anything you need, anything at all..." "Actually, there is one thing. I'm having a little gathering next weekend. Just a few friends, some food, maybe some entertainment. You should come." Martha's eyes lit up. She lived for social events, especially ones that promised drama or gossip. "What kind of entertainment?" "Oh, just some home movies. I think people will find them very interesting." By evening, word of my gathering had spread through half the town. People were curious about what the betrayed husband might have planned, what kind of entertainment he might provide. The anticipation was building exactly as I'd hoped. I drove home as the sun set over the Chesapeake Bay, feeling more alive than I had in years. For the first time since my birthday, I was looking forward to the future. Not because I expected happiness or love or any of the things I'd lost, but because I was finally in control of my own story. Jenny and Rick had written the first act. Emily had chosen her role. But I was going to write the ending. The gathering I'd planned for Saturday night had grown beyond my expectations. What started as a casual invitation to a few neighbors had turned into the social event of the season, with over 50 people confirming their attendance. Word had spread through the usual channels: Martha Lentz's phone tree, the gossip network at Murphy's Tavern, the morning coffee crowd at Riverside Diner. Everyone wanted to see what Tom Ward had planned for his revenge. I'd rented the community center pavilion in Riverside Park, the same venue where Jenny and I had held our wedding reception 16 years ago. The irony wasn't lost on me, and I was counting on it not being lost on anyone else either. By 7 o'clock p.m., the pavilion was packed. Pete was there, looking nervous and guilty. Martha Lentz had claimed a front row seat and was practically vibrating with anticipation. Frank Nichols from my office had come with his wife. Even Gerald Hendricks, the lawyer who'd fired Jenny, was there with his family. The only people missing were Jenny, Rick, and Emily. That changed at 7:30 when Jenny's Honda pulled into the parking lot. She got out with Emily beside her, both of them dressed like they were attending a funeral. Rick's Mustang arrived a few minutes later, and I watched through the pavilion windows as the three of them had an intense conversation in the parking lot. Jenny was gesturing angrily at the building. Emily looked like she'd been crying. Rick kept shaking his head and pointing back toward the cars, clearly wanting to leave. But Jenny was insistent, and after several minutes of argument, they walked toward the pavilion together. The crowd went quiet as they entered. Jenny held her head high, trying to project confidence, but I could see the fear in her eyes. Emily stayed close to her mother, shooting hostile glances at me across the room. Rick looked like he wanted to be anywhere else in the world. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, standing up and raising my beer bottle in a mock toast, "thank you all for coming to my little celebration. As many of you know, I recently received some very enlightening birthday gifts. Tonight, I thought I'd share them with all of you." I'd set up a large projection screen at the front of the pavilion connected to my laptop. With a click of the mouse, the video began playing. The crowd's reaction was immediate and visceral. Gasps, murmurs, a few shocked laughs. Jenny's face went white as she realized what was happening. Rick started moving toward the exit, but Pete and two other men had positioned themselves to block the doors, not to trap anyone, but to make leaving conspicuous and difficult. "This is the gift I received on my 41st birthday," I said, my voice carrying clearly over the crowd noise. "A video of my wife with her high school boyfriend, recorded in a hotel room I paid for with money from our joint account." The video continued playing. When Emily appeared on screen and hugged Rick, the crowd's murmur turned into an angry rumble. When she said she wished Rick was her father, several people shouted in disgust. "Stop it," Jenny said, her voice barely audible. "Please, Tom, stop this." "Stop what? Stop showing people the truth? Stop letting them see who you really are?" I paused the video on a frame that showed all three of them together, the happy family that had replaced me. This is what my marriage looked like while I was working 60-hour weeks to pay for our house, our cars, our daughter's private school education. Emily stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "Dad, please. I'm sorry, I didn't mean what I said. I was just angry about the fight we had about my curfew. I didn't mean it." "Which fight about your curfew, Emily? The one where you called me controlling and said you hated living with me? The one where you said Rick would let you do whatever you wanted? The one where you said I was boring and old-fashioned and you couldn't wait to move out?" She sobbed harder. "I was just being a stupid teenager. Please, Dad, I love you. I want to come home." For a moment, looking at my daughter's tear-streaked face, I almost wavered. Almost remembered the little girl who used to fall asleep in my lap during movie nights, who brought me drawings of stick figure families where everyone was smiling, who called me her hero when I scared away the monsters under her bed. Then I remembered her smile when she hugged Rick, her easy affection for the man who was destroying our family, her casual dismissal of me as the father she wished she didn't have. "I'm sorry, Emily, but some things can't be fixed with apologies. Some choices can't be undone." Rick finally found his voice. "Tom, that's enough. You've made your point. Let's go outside and settle this like men." "Settle what, Rick? You slept with my wife and turned my daughter against me. What exactly do you think there is to settle? I'll fight you, right here, right now. Winner takes all." The crowd stirred with excitement, but I just laughed. "Fight you, Rick. I'm not going to fight you. I don't need to. Look around." He did, and for the first time, he seemed to understand what was happening. 50 of his neighbors, his potential customers, his community members, all staring at him with disgust and contempt. His reputation, his business, his social standing, all of it destroyed in the space of a 10-minute video. You see, Rick, violence is what stupid people do when they can't think of anything smarter. I'm not stupid. I'm an engineer. I solve problems with precision and planning. I clicked the mouse again, and a new video began playing. This one showed Rick's car dealership with a timestamp from earlier that week. Rick was visible through the office window, having what looked like an intimate conversation with a woman who wasn't Jenny. "This is from Tuesday afternoon," I said. While Jenny was at home crying about our divorce, Rick was already lining up her replacement. Jenny spun around to stare at Rick, her face a mask of shock and betrayal. "You bastard! You told me you loved me. You said we'd be together. Jenny, I can explain..." "Explain what? That you're exactly what Tom said you were? That you never cared about me or Emily? That we were just another conquest?" The crowd was eating it up, watching the drama unfold like the world's most entertaining soap opera. But I wasn't done yet. "There's one more thing," I said, clicking to the final video. "This one's my favorite." The new video showed Rick's Mustang in the parking lot of a cheap motel, with Rick and the same woman from his office walking into a room together. The timestamp showed it was recorded yesterday, Friday night, while Jenny was working her second job as a waitress to pay rent on their apartment. Emily looked back and forth between her mother and Rick, finally understanding that the man she'd wanted as a father was exactly as worthless as everyone had tried to tell her. "You're disgusting," she said to Rick. her voice shaking with rage. "You're a liar and a cheat, and I hate you." Rick tried to respond, but the crowd had heard enough. Someone threw a beer bottle that shattered against the wall near his head. Someone else shouted, "Get out!" And suddenly the entire pavilion was on its feet, shouting and booing and demanding that Rick leave. He ran for the exit, pushing through the hostile crowd with his hands over his head to protect himself from the thrown objects. His Mustang peeled out of the parking lot with a screech of tires that could be heard all the way to the bay. Jenny stood in the middle of the chaos, abandoned by her lover, facing the contempt of her community, finally understanding the full scope of what she'd lost. "Tom," she said, her voice barely audible over the crowd noise, "what do you want from me? What will it take for you to forgive me?" I looked at her for a long moment. This woman I'd loved for half my adult life, this stranger who'd shared my bed and my dreams and my trust and felt absolutely nothing. "I don't want anything from you, Jenny. I don't want your apologies, or your promises, or your regret. I just want you to understand that actions have consequences. You chose Rick over me. Emily chose Rick over me. Now you both get to live with that choice. But Emily's just a child. Emily is 15 years old enough to know right from wrong, old enough to understand that her words and actions have meaning, old enough to learn that you can't take back the things you say when you think no one important is listening." I turned to address the crowd one final time. "Thank you all for coming tonight. I hope you found this as educational as I have. The bar is still open for another hour and the food's already paid for. Enjoy the rest of your evening." As I walked toward the exit, Emily ran after me. "Dad, wait, please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll do anything. I'll never speak to Rick again. I'll tell everyone what a mistake this was. Just please let me come home." I stopped and turned to face her, this young woman who looked so much like her mother, who had her mother's eyes and her mother's talent for saying whatever she thought people wanted to hear. "Emily, do you know what the worst part of that video was? It wasn't seeing your mother with another man. It wasn't hearing her call our marriage an inconvenience. It was watching you hug him and smile and tell him you wished he was your father. Because in that moment, I realized that I'd failed as a parent. I'd raised a daughter who could betray the people who loved her and feel good about it. I didn't mean it. You meant it when you said it. The fact that you regret it now doesn't change what was in your heart then." I walked away, leaving her crying in the parking lot next to her mother's car. As I drove home through the quiet streets of Riverside, I felt a sense of completion that I hadn't experienced in years. The house was dark and silent when I arrived, but it didn't feel empty anymore. It felt clean, honest, free of the lies and pretense that had been poisoning it for months. I poured myself a bourbon and sat on the deck, looking out over the water and thinking about the future. Not the future I'd planned with Jenny and Emily, but the future I was going to build for myself. A future where people earned my trust instead of demanding it, where loyalty was reciprocated instead of taken for granted, where I was valued for who I was instead of what I could provide. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Well done." She got exactly what she deserved. I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. I didn't need to know who had sent me the original video. It didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that I'd taken the gift they'd given me and used it to reclaim my life. Jenny and Rick were finished in this town. Their reputations were destroyed, their relationship was over, and they'd learned the hard way that betrayal always comes with a price. Emily would survive. She was young enough to recover from this, smart enough to learn from it, and strong enough to build a better life if she chose to. But she'd have to do it without me, because some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. I finished my bourbon and went inside, locking the door behind me. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new possibilities. But tonight, for the first time in months, I was going to sleep peacefully in my own bed, in my own house, surrounded by my own choices. The revenge was complete. The lesson was taught. The truth was revealed. And Tom Ward was finally free.